Have you ever felt like you're standing at a crossroads, frozen by indecision? Like no matter which way you turn, you're not sure if it's the right move? Maybe you're worried about making the wrong choice, or worse, disappointing someone else. If that hits home, you're not alone. Because today we're talking about choice, what it means, why we hesitate, and how to reclaim our power when we feel stuck. Welcome back to Journey to Self, the podcast where we uncover the stories, tools, and wisdom that guides us back to who we truly are. I'm your host, Sandy Bartlett, and today's episode is all about stepping into leadership, whether in your personal life, relationships, or career. But before we dive in, let's start with our intuitive moment. The card I pulled for today is the Two of Swords from the Light Seers Tarot deck, and my keyword for this card is choice. The imagery in this card is powerful. A blindfolded woman with crows pulling at the strings of her thoughts, tangled in uncertainty. It's that feeling of knowing a decision needs to be made, but feeling paralyzed by doubt. Do you listen to logic? Do you follow your heart? Or do you avoid the decision altogether and hope the answer will reveal itself? I've been there so many times. But here's the truth: not choosing is still a choice. And when we delay stepping into our power, we let fear lead instead of our own inner wisdom. So, as we dive in today's conversation about leadership and influence in our second spring, I want you to ask yourself, what decision have you been avoiding? And what might happen if you trusted yourself enough to make it? Let's explore that together. For our soul dive, we're going to dive into how childhood shapes people pleasing. For most of us, the fear of judgment didn't start in adulthood. It started when we were kids. Think back. Were you taught to always be polite, even when you were uncomfortable? Did you get in trouble for expressing emotions, crying, getting angry, or standing up for yourself? Remember the old, I'll give you something to cry about? Were you rewarded for being the easy one or the good girl or the peacemaker? Maybe you learned that love and approval were conditional. Maybe you were told, don't be dramatic or stop making a big deal out of things. Maybe you realized that staying small, quiet, and agreeable meant you were accepting. And so we carried that into adulthood. We don't speak up in meetings. We say yes to things we don't want to do. We stay in relationships, friendships, or jobs that drain us. Boy, I know that one. Because we don't want to be seen as selfish, difficult, or ungrateful. But here's the truth: the people who truly love you don't need you to be small for them to feel comfortable. And the only way to stop feeling invisible is to start showing up as your full self. So, how do we do that? Let me tell you what helped me. I'll never forget the moment I realized I was living for other people's approval. I was in a conversation when someone made a comment that just didn't sit right with me. And in my gut, I wanted to speak up. I wanted to say, actually, I don't agree with that. But instead, I laughed it off and nodded because I didn't want to be seen as difficult. As I walked away, I felt this wave of frustration, not at them, but at myself. Why was I prioritizing their comfort over my truth? That day, I made a decision. I will not shrink myself for the sake of being liked. I will not silence myself to avoid making waves. I will not betray myself just to stay comfortable. Because here's what I realized: when you stop fearing judgment, You start trusting yourself. And that's the most powerful thing you can do. For your inner reflection for this week, I want you to pause and ask yourself, where in your life are you making decisions based on what others think? What would you do differently if you weren't afraid of judgment? And what is one truth you've been holding back? Just let those questions sit with you. Again, no judgment, just awareness. Here's a quote for our whispers of wisdom from Glennon Doyle that illustrates this perfectly. Every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, your duty is to disappoint that someone else. Let that sink in. You are not responsible for managing how others feel about you. You are not here to live for someone else's expectations. You are not meant to shrink, soften, or silence yourself to stay acceptable. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. You matter. This week, for your empowerment action, I encourage you to take one small step toward releasing the fear of judgment. And as usual, I give you 3 options. Number 1, say no to something you don't want to do without guilt. Number 2, express an opinion you've been holding back, whether in a conversation or online. And option 3, wear something that makes you feel amazing without worrying about what others think. And if you're ready to step fully into confidence and need some support, my membership community on School, Journey to Self, The Awakening, is the place for you. It's a distraction-free community where you can get support and encouragement to be your authentic self. You'll find the link in the show notes. Join now before the price goes up. You get the first 7 days free, and then it's $11 per month for as long as you remain in the group. Every time you choose yourself over external validation, you reclaim your power. Your confidence is not waiting for someone else's approval. Thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit the subscribe or follow button so you don't miss the next episode where we'll be talking about stepping into leadership, how to claim your space and influence without apology. If this episode hit home for you, share it with a friend who also needs the encouragement. And until next time, be true to you.